There is 1,940. And something isn't right.
Something's wrong when you regret things that haven't happened yet. But it's a glorious day when morning comes without that feeling of alarm. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while and smile. And smile. You couldn't sleep for the awful fright that kept you up in bed last night. But while curious shapeshift in the dark, they vanish with the sunrise spark. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while and smile.
Hey. Hello, good morning. Okay, we go. Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2, also known as the final day. I know. This is the kind of event where there's so much excitement building up to it. The first day is like, wah! Then we get to this day and it sort of feels like, wait, are we nearly over already? It's kind of wild. Who had fun at the party last night? Yeah, you guys are like so tired, you can't even put your hands up. What I love is like this hotel does not get that many raging patio parties. So this event has become kind of famous for it. So thank you for keeping up the tradition of bringing it in the playtime as hard as you bring it in the learning seminar room. Before we begin, and I introduce a really gorgeous creative soul up here to set the space for us, I was having a conversation with someone last night about when you come to an event like this and there's so much like positive energy and people are having like massive breakthroughs and Lisa Nichols is changing their lives, and if you're someone who is having a slightly different experience where maybe what's coming up for you is actually really challenging, it can feel like, oh no, like I'm not in the right place. I've made a terrible mistake. And I just want to connect with anyone out there who all of this is actually bringing up stuff that is challenging. I just want to offer to you that like I'm having the same experience. And this is my 14th event. At every single event, I have some kind of transformation. Even just being here and working with you guys, I'm not even coming as like an attendee. I always have something come up. And sometimes it's a great breakthrough, but like this event for me is like, oh, it's really bringing up a really challenging old behavioral pattern. So if you're in that boat, I just want to let you know, like that's part of the process and you're still in the right place. And what comes on the other side of it, maybe today there'll be something that helps you to move through that or gives you a clue so you can take the next path forward as you leave this event into the next couple of weeks of your life. But you're in the right place, and that's also a very normal part of the experience when you're having so much shaken up around you and in you. And really to get us started on the second day, we wanted to bring in someone who could create an experience for us, similar to like how we have, Adam Roa and Elijah Ray really giving ourselves a bit of artistic space. And so I'm excited. Our creative soul this morning, her name is Linda Arnold. She's also known as Diva Sonic, and she's a certified. Yeah, she's amazing. Social proof, right there. And quite rightly, because she's an amazing sound meditation facilitator. She's a multi-instrumentalist, a vocalist, a composer, and really her mission is to create healthy communities with music and sound. And she's LA-based, and she's going to open up this morning, and she's also going to help close with our closing ceremony tonight. So to experience her for the first time and to drop in together on our final day, please welcome Linda Arnold, Diva Sonic.
Good morning. Woo. So we're gonna drop into some meditative space together. And I thought it'd be nice for us to use our voices first. It's one of my things. And then I'm gonna sing and we're gonna meditate for about 10 minutes. Do you hear me? Oh, okay. Woohoo! Okay. So I love everyone just to close their eyes and drop into the heart space, whatever that means for you. You're gonna take a nice deep breath in and sigh. A long day ahead. And just spend it with ease and grace. We're gonna do 3 ah sounds together. We're gonna sing the vowel sound ah. We're going to resonate this whole chamber of this ballroom together. And then I invite you to listen and set your intention for today. Take a nice deep breath in. center and just hum with me. Hum with the shrutis and activate the vibration of your own body through your voice for the last minute here. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. I'll be seeing you up here. I'll be up here later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for dropping us into a calm, receptive state for our morning session. And a really beautiful segue, actually, because this is sort of a bridge, both from last night and then energetically, into what we're going to be sharing about next. Our next speaker focuses on a part of our life that we often don't even think about. We're so focused on our waking, conscious existence, on using our minds to make stuff happen, we sometimes forget that we spend a third of our lives sleeping and the powerful role that sleep has in enabling us to actually do the work we want to do while we're awake. Who's ever had like a sleep issue, struggle to sleep well, get good sleep? Yeah. Keep your hand up if you happen to drink a lot of coffee too. You should check out the mud water. It's like a better alternative, so it's not so jittery. But a lot of people struggle with sleep issues, and if you have sleep deprivation, if you have continuous sleep issues, your ability to show up and perform in your life is dramatically reduced. But we just don't talk about it. We just don't really think about this as something we should be curious about or put effort and time into. And so we're really lucky. Mindvalley brought in our next speaker, Dr. Michael Breus, into their fold. He created Quest, and he's actually agreed he's come here today to share with us on how to be better in bed. No, you don't find that funny, really? Like, tough crap. You guys, you're like, we just ommed. We're not ready for jokes. Okay, I hear you. But I thought it was a great pun. How to be better in bed, but really for ourselves, not so much in the sexual intimacy sense. And he really is uniquely positioned to share on this because he's a clinical psychologist, and his specialty is really in sleeping disorders. He's like one of, I think, like 160 psychologists who have this very specific kind of certification and all the knowledge he has. And he's one of those bios, like I read his bio and I'm like, I can't remember this. Like, this is so impressive. I'm going to have to pick like 5 things. But he really comes from this place of being a sleep specialist, a sleep advocate. He shares on the biggest shows around the world, Dr. Oz and Oprah and Rachel Ray. And he really is on a mission to help people live their best lives by understanding their biology and working with that. So I'm very excited to introduce to you today Dr. Michael Breus.
Do you want to sleep better and become more productive?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you weren't talking to me. Go ahead. Sorry.
Then you need better timing, at least according to clinical psychologist and sleep specialist Michael Breus. His new book, The Power of When, uses the new science of chronobiology to show how adjusting your daily schedule can make you healthier and happier.
What is insomnia?
Well, that's a great question because it's pretty complicated, and not all insomnia is created equal. There's the I can't fall asleep, there's the I can't stay asleep, there's I wake up too early, there's the insomnia associated with depression, insomnia associated with pain, insomnia associated with anxiety. There's all kinds of different types of insomnia.
That's right. Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Dr. Michael Breus, who is teaching us ways to remake our bedroom so that it is a sleep-friendly environment.
Dr. Breus, there are millions of women, just like the women in our studio today, who are taking melatonin, and many of them experiencing the same side effects. Is that true?
It is true. It's amazingly true. And all of these ladies here, I mean, I can see some people are almost ready to tear up. They're like, oh my gosh, that's me that we're talking about up there.
How is it that some people fall asleep instantly? I've seen Stedman literally, I can count 1 minute and 37 seconds from the time he puts his head on the pillow. I want to go, what is that?
People who fall asleep that quickly are actually sleep deprived.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Okay, so now you've got some. People ask me all the time, well, can I catch up on my sleep on the weekends, right? Well, in all actuality, yeah, you probably can't catch up on as much of it as we once thought.
This is very disturbing.
I know, I'm sorry to say. You can probably catch up about 30 minutes, but if you go longer than that, your entire biological clock wants to shift.
Have you ever heard of propofol as a treatment for insomnia?
I've never heard
No.
of that being used before. I can't even think of an extreme case where it would seem like an appropriate use.
So you've never prescribed it as a drug to put someone to sleep?
No, that's a medication that's used by anesthesiologists and veterinarians.
Welcome to my bedroom.
Thank you. It's pretty popular in here.
I haven't said that in a long time. Dr. Breus, what's going on here?
She's the textbook case of what we would consider to be something like a sleep-related eating disorder. When we walk into a room, we want to have a sleep environment that's conducive to sleep, relaxation. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, this is good. Really good. Oh, this is so good.
I tell people you want to replace your pillow about once a year because it can actually break down and not give you the head support that you need.
I have to go to the store today?
I've had the same pillow for at least 10 years.
Yeah. That's just kind of gross.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. A little bit.
I'm so clean.
No, I know you're, I'm not saying anything about your cleanliness. I'm saying it from the standpoint of you're not getting that support that you need.
Really?
Yeah.
Good morning. How's everybody doing tonight? All right, so I had them turn the lights up so it feels more like morning. So first of all, thank you for that amazing meditation this morning. That was incredible. Thank you so much. It was put everybody in a great space. So hi, I'm Dr. Michael Breus. I'm known as the sleep doctor, but I am also the Mindvalley sleep doctor. So what does that mean, right? So I'm here for you guys. That's the whole point. Vishen and I got together about 2 years ago, and he said, Michael, sleep is incredibly important, and you're the guy I want to have talk to my people about it. And so I felt incredibly honored, and together we put together something called the Sleep Quest. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to be able, so we've got a couple people here who've sleep quested. That's awesome, fantastic. And I'm gonna tell you a lot about sleep this morning. I'm gonna give you a tremendous amount of information, so be ready. It's kind of like gonna be like drinking from the fire hose. Don't worry. We'll also make the slides and things like that available to you so you can really pay attention. But if you want to take pictures, take pictures. I don't have a problem with it. I'll be here for at least half of the day, so if you have questions later on that don't get answered from the talk, I'll be answering them later. Just find me. I'll be walking around, things like that. So it turns out that there are two specific systems in the brain for sleep, right? One is called your sleep drive. And this is a lot like hunger, right? So I'm hungry, I eat something, and that hunger begins to dissipate. The same holds true with sleep, right? So when a cell eats a piece of glucose, something comes out the back end. One of those things is called adenosine. Adenosine works its way through the system and goes through a very specific receptor site in your brain. As adenosine accumulates, you get sleepier and sleepier and sleepier. That's that whole mechanism behind why we sleep and why we want to fall asleep. Now here's what's interesting. So I'm a little bit of a sleep geek, and I was looking at the molecular structure of adenosine, and what I noticed is that it's very similar to the molecular structure of caffeine. In fact, it's only off by one molecule. So here's what's interesting, is when you drink caffeine, it actually fits into that receptor site and blocks the adenosine. This is the reason why caffeine makes you feel less sleepy. But with caffeine, your brain burns through the caffeine pretty quickly, and then the adenosine comes flooding into the system, and that's when that caffeine crash has a tendency to happen. Have anybody in here experienced that caffeine crash where you drink a little bit of caffeine and then bam, you get clobbered later on in the day? That's where that's coming from. But that's only one system. The second system is called your sleep rhythm. So you ever notice how you kind of get hungry around breakfast time, around lunchtime, and around dinner time? That's your circadian rhythm. We have over 300 circadian rhythms in our system, but sleep circadian rhythm is probably one of the best known. So here's what's interesting about the sleep circadian rhythm is most people, at least in the United States, have a tendency to fall asleep somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock. So one of the things we know is if your rhythm is on sync and your drive is high, you sleep. But if either one of these is off, that's when you have what we call a sleep disorder, right? Now, I believe that there's an entire another category of sleep that nobody has been addressing, and that's what I call disordered sleep, right? So sleep disorders are apnea, narcolepsy, formal insomnia, things that you might come see a sleep specialist for. But what about for all of the people out there who go into that room in the back of their house, turn off the light, get under the covers, come out maybe 5, 6, 8 hours later, and they don't feel so great? That's disordered sleep. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what the Quest really identifies, and that's what we're going to talk about quite a bit today. So what I thought I'd do is give you a quick lesson in sleep in terms of the biology of sleep and what are the stages and how does this whole thing work. But I promise you it's not going to get too deep, but what it is going to do is it's going to give you a new set of words to use when you're thinking about sleep in general. So when we take a look at this one, this is what's called a histogram. And so when we look at this, orange represents wake, and then we go from wake to stage 1, 2, which is light sleep, down into stages 3, 4, which is what we call deep sleep, back to stages 1 and 2, and then on into REM sleep, which is represented here by this light blue, right? So over here we can see it as well. We've got the orange, which represents the wake, into light, down into deep, back to light, and into REM. So what's so important about all of this? A couple of different things I want you to notice about this slide that are extremely important. Number one is that we do this very specific dance move, and this takes approximately 90 minutes. So one, what we call sleep cycle, is 90 minutes long. I want you to deposit that in your brain because that number is going to become important in just a second. The other thing we do is we count sleep cycles based on the number of REM periods that a person has. So we know that this person has 5 REM periods, so they have 5 cycles. Generally speaking, most people have 5. I want you to lock that number into your brain as well. So just for review, how long is a sleep cycle? And how many of them do most normal people have? 5. Fantastic. Mia, this group is very responsive. I'm not getting maybe you just don't like her jokes. Well, we'll see. She's very funny, by the way. I think she's hilarious. I listen to her all the time. So other things to look at is this full area in the front is where your deep sleep is front loaded. So for some reason, your brain has decided to put deep sleep in the front, and REM sleep seems to be spread out more towards the back half. That's going to be important as well. So what is deep sleep or stages 3, 4 sleep? This is the wake up and feel great sleep. This is actually your physical restoration, okay? So this is where everything from your blood pressure dropping to your respiration slowing, but to be fair, it's where the largest bolus of growth hormone is emitted. Michael, what's growth hormone? Why do I care about growth hormone? Is it important? If you have any interest in anti-aging, if you have any interest in longevity, if you have any interest in physical repair, you should be interested in growth hormone, okay? Because growth hormone is the thing in your body that does all of that. True cellular repair goes on. But remember, that has a tendency to occur in the first third of the night. Why would that be? We really don't know, but our guess is that our body has to physically restore first, because if we have to wake up after 2 or 3 hours, we need to be able to get up and do something or be able to do whatever it is we need to do. Now, REM sleep turns out to be one of the more popular stages of sleep that's out there. It stands for rapid eye movement, but this is your mental restoration, right? So physical restoration, stage 3, 4, what we call deep sleep. REM sleep is your mental restoration. we've now discovered that this is when what you're doing in this stage is moving information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, right? So for anybody out there who's got memorial deficits, things like, hey, my memory's just not working so well, or I'm reading books and I can't remember what I used to read and things like that, this could have to do with your lack of REM sleep, for sure. It's pretty fascinating when you start to look at some of the information, but what we now think is, what happens is the data comes in through your eyes or through your ears or through your mouth somehow or another, and this data is electric. And it moves along to get to basically your storage unit inside your brain, which is kind of like a filing cabinet. What it has to do is then take this piece of information, find the right cabinet, find the right file drawer, and then find the right file to deposit the information. But the problem is there's thousands and thousands of pieces of information coming in, right? And so your brain doesn't always get it straight. So if you have this dream, by the way, this is what we think dreams are, is this electrical course of information and this attachment of information to other pieces of information. That's what our brain does, and we manifest that in a dream. So hold on a second, Michael. I had a dream last night where I walked downstairs and my dog was eating a bowl of spaghetti with my second grade teacher. What is going on, right? So in all likelihood, what happened is you may have had Italian that night for dinner, your dog probably jumped on the bed, and your second grader reminded you about your second grade teacher, maybe in the back recesses of your mind, and all that information kind of got stuck together, right? So that's how we think dreaming works, which is in and of itself pretty interesting. But one of the most fascinating aspects of REM sleep is that your muscles get so relaxed, you become paralyzed. Does anybody want to take a guess as to why we become paralyzed during dream sleep? So the answer was so that you don't kill the person in bed next to you. That is correct, as a matter of fact. I 100% agree. So it is so that you don't act out your dreams. So it's very funny that you put it that way, because I'm going to tell you a story about a patient that I had where this paralytic mechanism did not work. Okay? So I'm from a small area outside Atlanta, Georgia, called Sandy Springs, Georgia. And anybody here from Georgia? All right, Georgia, go Dogs. So anyway, it's a hunting community. And if you're a hunter, you know that if you shoot a doe and you don't kill it, you either have to slit its throat or crack its neck, right? It's the most humane thing to do. This man woke up with his wife's head ready to crack her neck. What's the first question? Come on, what's the first question? Did he kill her, right? Doesn't everybody want to know, did he kill her or not? No, he did not kill her. What's the second question? Did she kill him? That's a good one. Are they divorced is usually the second question. She is a very patient woman, let me tell you. Here's what was so fascinating. So this is called REM behavior disorder. It's a well-known disorder. It's rare, but well-known. With one medication, we were able to completely disrupt this behavior. But what was so fascinating is in 35% of cases with REM behavior disorder, it's a precursor for Parkinson's syndrome. And this gentleman was one of those people. And so we were able to get him into neurology literally 10 years before we saw any type of Parkinsonian type of symptomatology, raising its ugly head. So we literally changed the course of his life by understanding his sleep. And I use that as an example for you guys because you've got to look at your own sleep, right? Your sleep will tell you what's going on in your body, whether your body is healthy, whether your body is not. If you've got light disrupted, crappy sleep, guess what? Something's going on, right? And you need to think about that. You need to listen to your sleep. And that's one of the reasons that I get up here and I get to do all this kind of fun, interesting stuff. Interestingly, though, in REM sleep, your heart rate actually increases. Believe it or not, you use as much glucose during REM sleep as you do when you're awake. That's how fast your brain is going and what your brain is doing. So somebody asked me one day, they said, so if I get really a lot of REM sleep, will I lose weight, Dr. Breus? Maybe. Believe it or not, REM sleep is the stage of sleep that you lose the most weight in because your brain is actually consuming the most calories. We talked about how dreaming occurs and why it occurs. So let's use some of our information, right? So we know that the average sleep cycle is how long? 90 minutes. We know the average person has how many? 5. Right? So 5 times 90 is? I didn't tell you there was going to be math this early in the morning, did I? 5 times 90 is? 450 minutes divided by 60 would be 7.5 hours. So let me be clear. 8 hours is a myth. The math doesn't even work, okay? Everybody's sleep need is individualized, and I'm gonna show you how to figure it out. You take your socially determined wake-up time, you take those 7.5 hours that we were just talking about, you count backwards from when you wake up, and this becomes your new bedtime. Let's be honest, when was the last time somebody told you to go to bed? What were you, like 8? Right, 10? That was a joke, guys. Come on, work with me. There we go, I got the big laugh in the back, I appreciate it. So, let's make the math simple, right? If you wake up at 6:30, you subtract 7.5 hours, you go to bed at 11. So I tried this, and it failed miserably. I went to bed at 11 and I woke up at 5:30. You guys don't know me very well, I'm a night owl. Okay, the only thing I hate more than mornings are morning people. They're just so damn chipper in the mornings. Like, I'm not that guy, okay? So I certainly wasn't interested in being awake at 5:30 in the frickin' morning. So I went to bed at 11, woke up at 5:30 again, said, all right, I'm gonna go to bed at 12, see what happens. Went to bed at 12, I woke up almost on the nose at 6:30, right? So my sleep cycle turns out to not be 90 minutes, it's like 81 minutes. Michael, how did you figure that out? Guys, I work in a sleep lab. It's not hard for me to figure that stuff out, but you can do it with trackers. There's actually a group here that I was talking to earlier that's got a really interesting sleep tracking device that's gonna be coming out. So there's a lot of things that you can do to learn more about how you can actually affect your sleep. And one of those ways is assessment. Try this experiment at home. You will be shocked at how easy it works. Now, one of the things that I know and that I've been working on for a long time are these things called chronotypes. Now, you might not have heard of the term, but you've actually heard of the concept. Has everybody in here ever heard of somebody being called an early bird or a night owl? Those are chronotypes. Turns out those are genetically predetermined. You can't change your chronotype, but I found a fourth one. So we used to think there were early birds, there were night owls, and that one we called hummingbirds, which were people in the middle. Now, to be fair, I'm a mammal, not a bird, so I decided to change the animals a little bit. Now, to be fair, when we were in this marketing discussion to decide we were going to come up with new animals to represent the different chronotypes, we had to choose very wisely. Nobody wants to be a porcupine. We've discovered this in our early marketing meetings together. So I chose animals that actually have the circadian rhythmicity that we're talking about. So lions turn out to be my early risers, about 15%. This replaces the early birds. And so early morning optimists with medium sleep drive. These are my go-getters, my COOs of a company for sure. They're likely to prioritize health and fitness. They have a tendency to make a plan and stick to it. So you know these people, right? They make a list every morning, and they go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. They're the ones who woke up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? They're the people I don't really like a lot. Just because I can't handle it, right? I can't get up that early, but people tell me all the time, oh, I wish I was a lion, Michael, because I'd love to get up that early and be able to do all this cool, amazing stuff. Well, here's the only problem with being a lion. Dinner and a movie is out. You've been up since like 4:30 in the morning, right? I mean, there's no way you're gonna make it through a movie. So socially, lions don't do so well, but in most other areas, they actually do pretty well. Bears make up almost 50% of the population, so lots of people are bears. By the way, you can learn what your chronotype is by going on my sleep quest or taking my quiz at chronoquiz.com. Solar sleepers with healthy sleep drives, they are really the glue for society. These are the people that get it done. And these are very extroverted, oftentimes open-minded individuals, very fun, enjoyable group. And most of society, believe it or not, is built around a bear's schedule. So if you turn out to take my quiz and find out that you're a bear, being a bear is the best. Okay, why? Because the entire society works on a bear schedule. 9 to 5 is a bear's schedule. I'm a wolf, okay? What is a wolf? A wolf is a night owl. I've always been a night owl historically. I'm kind of one of those out-of-the-box thinkers, but a lot of my night owls are my actors, are my musicians, are my artists, my creative types of people. They can be big risk takers, though, I will warn you. We do have a tendency to do that. But if we make a list, we go from step 1 to step 12 to step 47, right? Like, we never go in order, but it makes a lot of sense to us for some strange reason. Believe it or not, many of the wolves are socially introverted. I, of course, am not. Particularly socially introverted, but they are deep, loyal friends. And then there are the dolphins. So the dolphins are my problem children. The dolphins are historically my insomniacs, and that's who I added to the vernacular. So I went from early birds, night owls in the middle, and I added the new category of dolphins. These are my people who have difficulty sleeping. So often erratic sleep schedules, short sleep drive, but they are oftentimes very highly intelligent people, but they've just got a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder, and what it ends up doing is their jobs are never quite done. You know this person, right? They've fixed it and fixed it and fixed it and fixed it, right? And they never stop fixing whatever the project is that they're working on, when of course everybody around them looks at their project and says, this is amazing, I can't believe you did all of this. They have a tendency to be very fast talking, a lot of fun, but they are more on the anxious side of the realm. So how can we use, so you may have identified with one of these 4 chronotypes. Now let's put them to use. So we're going to take a look at 2 major substances that affect sleep in your life. Those would be caffeine and alcohol, right? So let's talk, how many people in here drink coffee? Tea? Any caffeinated beverage whatsoever? Is it literally the entire room? Probably, except for maybe 1 or 2 folks. So let's talk about it. So caffeine is arguably the most abused substance in the world. But let's talk about what happens when you drink coffee in the morning, right? How many people here, by a raise of hands, the first substance to pass over their lips in the morning is a caffeinated beverage? Yeah, let me tell you why that's not the best idea, okay? So it turns out in order to exit a state of unconsciousness, you need 2 hormones. You need adrenaline and cortisol. Both of them raise up pretty significantly to pull you out of sleep. If you compare cortisol and adrenaline to caffeine, it's like comparing cocaine to weak tea, okay? The amount of oomph that it gives you is completely different. For most people, where the very first thing they do is drink a cup of coffee, my guess is rarely just 1, right? Because what happens is the effects of caffeine almost are diminished incredibly based on all the cortisol and adrenaline that's already in your system. So then you end up drinking more, and then you get the side effects and things like that. However, if you just waited 90 minutes from the moment you opened your eyes, you're all thinking, no frickin' way, right? If you just waited 90 minutes, I promise you that what happens is your cortisol and adrenaline begin to naturally drop. Then when you add caffeine there, it actually boosts the cortisol and adrenaline. You get a lot more bang for your buck by drinking a bottle of water first, and then waiting that 90 minutes, and then drinking that caffeine, all based on these hormonal rhythms. There's also a metabolic rhythm that's important to think about as well, which has to do with how long does caffeine stay in your system, right? Average half-life of caffeine is between 6 and 8 hours, right? So I'm also recommending that you want to stop caffeine by about 2 p.m., right? Because what happens is if you stop caffeine at 2 p.m., then it gives you about 8 hours till about 10, which remember is kind of the average amount of time when people go to bed. Now, how many people do we have in here? Probably like almost 200 people here this morning, right? So there's at least 20 people in the room right now, and here's what you're saying. Sleep doctor. He has no idea what he is talking about. I can have a cup of coffee at dinner, and I can fall right to sleep. How many people in here think I'm full of it? Raise your hands. Come on, I know you're out there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's always 20. 8, 9, 10, in this side, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, here we go. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Look at that. I'm pretty good at predicting these things. It's always 10% of the crowd who thinks I'm completely full of it. So, let me tell you why I am right and you are wrong, okay? So, here's the thing that's so fascinating about caffeine, is many people have different caffeine sensitivities. I actually have a patient, if she has 3 chocolate kisses, she could be up all night. I got another patient that could drink a pot of black coffee and go right to sleep. So it turns out that there are different caffeine sensitivities. However, for all of those people that raised your hands, if you do have a caffeinated beverage late in the day, you may be able to fall asleep, but if I put electrodes all over your head and I look at the quality of the sleep that you're getting, I can guarantee you it's not good, right? So just because you can fall asleep doesn't mean that you're getting the quality sleep. We used to think of sleep only in minutes and hours. Now we need to really start thinking about the depth of our sleep. That's why tracking and assessment turns out to be so important. So what I decided to do was create times based on your chronotype of the best times for you to do certain things. So these are your caffeinated times based on your chronotype. So if you're one of my problem children and you're a dolphin, you can see what the best times are for you to drink caffeine. If you're a lion, a bear, or a wolf. Now you'll notice wolves like me, we don't have caffeine after 2 p.m. because we're already awake, right? So we need caffeine early, we don't need caffeine late. So it becomes very, very different very, very quickly based on your chronotype. So I wanted to give everybody my favorite caffeine hack. I call it the Napa Latte. If you want to take a picture, this is probably the thing to take a picture of. So if you have not gotten enough sleep and you are dragging it, here's what you do. Go out and get yourself a cup of black drip coffee. Put in 3 ice cubes merely to cool it down. Slug it. Drink the whole thing as quickly as you can. Close your eyes immediately and take a 25-minute nap. What? That's crazy, Dr. Breus. What are you talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Remember from my very first slide where I was talking about adenosine and caffeine and how they're so similar to one another? Here's what happens. When you close your eyes and take a nap, your brain starts to burn through some of that adenosine. The caffeine is literally waiting in the wings. When you wake up after 25 minutes, the caffeine hops in. You're good for 4 hours. Guaranteed. Works every time. I've never had it not work for me. So if you're looking, to be clear, don't do a Napa Latte every day, right? This is for certain times when you didn't get enough sleep, when you're really dragging it and you really want to have something in your back pocket for a little bit of extra energy. This is a great and healthy way to do it. So let's talk about alcohol. There's a really big difference between going to sleep and passing out, right? Okay, so if that is the case, we need to think through this a little bit because I like red wine and scotch and beer. I think I've listed all of them now. And so I want to make sure that we can all enjoy our adult beverages, but still get a great night's sleep. So there's a lot of different things that we can think about here. One is looking at our tolerance. So it's really interesting. Our liver, which is the thing that kind of detoxifies all the alcohol, makes this thing called alcohol dehydrogenase, right? It doesn't really kick in until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and kind of goes from 4 till about 6 or 7. What time is that at the bar? Happy hour. I'm not convinced that the bartenders in the 1800s who discovered happy hour knew about this biological thing that's going on, but I can tell you that they figured out that, wow, people can surely drink a lot between 4 and 6 in the afternoon, and that has a lot to do with your rhythm. So if you're out for brunch on a Sunday morning and you decide to have a mimosa at 11 o'clock, you're probably going to get pretty tipsy whether you like it or not because, again, your body doesn't have that alcohol dehydrogenase in it. Waiting a little bit longer gives you a little bit better opportunity to metabolize through it and not have such a big effect. So what I did was I created a table for strategic drinking. So based on your chronotype, I am going to tell you exactly when you should have alcohol. Wait, there's more. There's also hangover hacks that I've added to this slide as well. This appears to be a very popular slide with this crowd. I'm not really sure why, but we'll continue on. Mia, you did say it was quite a party the other night, or last night rather. So these are the times when you will drink at your best, right? Meaning that you will still enjoy alcohol, you'll still get the nice feelings from it, but it won't be too much for you to be able to handle. To be clear, it's 1 drink an hour, guys, okay? Don't go crazy, right? Please be careful, those types of things. One of the things you want to do is you want to remember that alcohol is a diuretic, right? It makes you have to go to the bathroom, and once you break the seal, you're going to be peeing all night long. What you don't want to do is go to bed dehydrated. Most people don't know this. Sleep is a dehydrative event. You lose almost a full liter of water every night while you're sleeping from the humidity in your breath, believe it or not. So what you don't want to do is go to bed dehydrated from drinking too much alcohol, have this dehydrative event called sleep, and then wake up in the morning, and what's the first thing you do? Drink coffee, which is also a diuretic. So it puts your body into a huge state of dehydration, and your body doesn't function well when it's dehydrated, right? So thinking through the whole idea, you really want to be careful in what you're doing. And these should be some of the steps that should be able to help you. There's at least 2 studies to show that coconut water helps with a hangover. I thought that was fascinating, right? I mean, this is great research for me to be able to send out into the universe. So if you have coconut water, just have a half a coconut water before you go to bed. You'll be surprised because it's loaded with magnesium. It turns out that alcohol pulls a lot of magnesium and a lot of vitamin B out of you. And that's part of the reason that you have that hangover. Magnesium and vitamin B in the morning could be helpful. Stop drinking approximately 3 hours before bed. So 1 hour per alcoholic beverage. So if you have 2 to 3 glasses of wine with dinner and you stop dinner at 8, you are good to go by 11 if you've had 2 to 3 glasses of water. Very simple, very straightforward. What does good sleep do for you? Literally everything, right? Everything you do better with a good night's sleep. So there was recent data to show that cancer cells multiply faster the more sleep deprived you are. Cancer, okay? I'm not fooling around. The Nobel Prize in Medicine 2 years ago was given to circadian researchers. Yay, sleep, right? It's getting out there. We're learning all kinds of amazing, important things about sleep. There's now data to show that if you deliver chemotherapy at a particular time in somebody's 24-hour cycle, you need less chemo and it's more effective, right? Less poison going into the body, more effective just by administering it at the right time in somebody's circadian cycle. This is real science, guys, and it's really effective, and it's definitely something that you can control. Sleep is a skill set. Okay, you can learn how to sleep better, and you can make your sleep better. Absolutely, every single person in this room can do it. How many people in here travel? So there's a lot. Okay, so I travel constantly, as I'm sure you can imagine. And one of the biggest problems is how do you sleep on a plane, right? So I don't know if you know about this. There's a great website called seatguru.com. You type in your flight number, and it brings up a schematic of the fuselage, and it tells you red light, yellow light, green light, what the best seats are for sleep on the plane, which is pretty cool. I think it's awesome. And it tells you things like, where's the most noise, so it's really pretty interesting. I bring my own sleep kits, especially on international travel, because quite frankly, what they give you isn't that fantastic. So I bring my own eye mask, my own earplugs, and I also bring podcasts and things like that to listen to. And then also I use things called progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery. So I've got all these things that are available to me on my phone with my sleep kit, and I'm out like a light. Now, to be fair, there's this thing called jet lag, right? So you start one place, you go to another place, but your brain doesn't know that you've actually been in an airplane for the last 18 hours, and all of a sudden you're in a new time zone. What do? So we started working with a group and discovered that by using these 4 components, light, melatonin, caffeine, and napping, you can actually completely obliterate jet lag. So I had a patient who is a Saudi Arabian princess. I know that sounds odd, but when you're in my business, you'd be shocked at who shows up. So here's what we did with her. I want to show you how it worked, and then I'm going to show you what you can do to do it yourself. So you can see the top is Los Angeles, the middle is Germany, the third is Saudi. So that's where she was going, going from Los Angeles to Saudi. So she went to bed at 11 p.m. That's where the purple starts over here. And if you look over here, she went to bed right here at 11, gotta get my hand straight, 11 p.m. She then sleeps, then she wakes up right here, has caffeine and light, goes to bed at the same time. You'll notice now she's waking up an hour earlier. Again, caffeine and light. She goes all the way, and now she takes her first flight with melatonin, right? So she has her melatonin here. She takes her first flight, sleeps for 3 hours, then she's awake for the remainder of that flight. They touch down in Germany, refuel, then she's awake for the remainder of the flight. She now lands in Saudi. It's 12 midnight. She takes her melatonin and goes to bed. And that's literally how it works. By doing 2 days prior to her leaving, we were able to completely disintegrate her jet lag, literally in 3 days. She was normally experiencing jet lag for 7, 8, 9 days. The human body will actually adapt to jet lag by 1 hour per time zone crossed. 1 day per time zone crossed. So it takes a while when you're crossing multiple time zones. So this type of scheduling can be very, very helpful. So as my gift to all of you, and thanks for you attending, this is actually an app that you can download for free. If you use the code TheSleepDoctor, I've actually created this thing called Time Shifter. Please download it, check it out. For international travel or domestic travel, you can do whatever you want, but you can log it all in and check it out. And it'll actually tell you exactly what to do with those 4 components. So lots of people ask me about sleep hacking, right? So can I do something called polyphasic sleep, right? So can I get less sleep at night, take a couple of quick naps during the day, and make it all work? So believe it or not, you can. It's not the healthiest thing in the universe to do, but you can do it. By the way, they've been doing this in Latin America forever, right? Because they have siestas that people have been taking in the middle of the day, and that's kind of these 2 different phases of sleep, right? We have your core 6 hours, you take a 20-minute nap. What you've done then is now taken, let's say you had 7 hours. By doing this, where you do 6 hours with a 20-minute nap, you just took 40 minutes off of your total sleep time. Michael, what else can I do? Well, you could even do it further. You could use the 2-nap method, go for 4.5 hours from 11 p.m. to 3:30 a.m., and then take these 20-minute naps throughout the day. I just took off 110 minutes off of your 7-hour sleep cycle. Oh, but Michael, can I do even further? Yes, you can. You can do a 3-hour core and naps at these different times. Now, let me be clear. This is not an advisable thing to do, right? Can you do it? Can the body withstand it? Absolutely. Here's what happens. By the 3rd week, if you have any proclivity for depression, it'll pop in a major depressive episode. Now you have 2 problems on your hands, right? If you have any proclivity for depression, this is not a great idea. Other thing is, this is really lonely. I've had many, many people come to me and say, hey, I want to do this, and what they discover is they're only sleeping from 12:30 to 3:30 in the morning, and there's only so much they can do on the internet. They're like, there's nobody that I care about that's awake at this time. And so we start to find that people think that it's going to be a great schedule because they're going to reduce their sleep and get so much done. But the truth of the matter is you can't mess with Mother Nature, right? Get your sleep. Don't do something like this. All it's going to do is wreak havoc across your body and your mind, I guarantee you. So what are 5 things that everybody can do today to help them sleep better tonight? Let's talk about it. So we already talked a little bit about caffeine. I want you to delay. I know people are not happy about this. Delay your caffeine by 90 minutes in the morning. Drink water instead. Remember, sleep is a dehydrative event. Get 15 minutes of sunlight every morning. So when you wake up in the morning, this is what you should do. You should reach over to your bedside table, and there should be a bottle of room temperature water. You should grab it, start drinking it, and walk over to the window and get some direct sunlight. Do me a favor, put on a robe. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Put on a robe. Do us all a favor. But yes, get 15 minutes of sunlight every morning. Why do you want 15 minutes of sunlight? 15 minutes of sunlight turns off the melatonin faucet in your brain and gets rid of that morning fog almost immediately. So if you wake up in the morning and your head is all get sunlight. If you wake up so early that there's no sun out, go ahead and get artificial light, or you can buy a light box. They're commercially available for like $90 on Amazon. I have people who use light boxes every morning to help clear that morning fog, and it helps quite a bit. Staying physically active is probably the best way to improve the quality of your sleep. I keep banging on hydration, and then of course, stopping caffeine, hopefully by about 2 p.m. Now, Michael, you've told me some stuff to do during the day, but remind me about the things I need to do at night. No problem, happy to do it. Alcohol, we've talked about it a little bit. If you can just limit alcohol 3 hours before bed, remember, if you had 3 drinks, give yourself 3 hours. If you had 2 drinks, give yourself 2 hours. Make sure to use 1 glass of water with every alcoholic beverage. A lot of people like to exercise, which is, again, a great way to improve the quality of your sleep, but if you exercise too close to bed, you actually increase your core body temperature. When you increase your core body temperature, your body can't release melatonin and fall asleep. So you don't want to actually exercise too close to bedtime. So about 4 hours is probably where you want to be. Most people think that sleep is kind of this on-off switch, right? It doesn't actually work that way. It's really more like slowly pulling your foot off the gas and slowly putting your foot on the brake. There's a process that needs to occur. So for a lot of people, what I have them do is do an hour before bed, just kind of chilling out. So the sound meditation thing that we did this morning, that would be a perfect thing to do right before bed, just to kind of chill you out and relax you and kind of get you there. But whatever it works for you, it could be journaling, it could be reading, it could be whatever. You need to figure out what helps get you there during that hour. So what I do is I chop that hour up into 3 different 20-minute segments. So 20 minutes for just shit I gotta do, right? 20 minutes for hygiene, and then 20 minutes for some form of meditation, relaxation, prayer, whatever works, again, helps slow you down and get you there. I don't know about you guys, but as I'm falling asleep, I have cured cancer. I have come up with the best business ideas I could ever possibly come up with, and I've gone to extreme detail in thinking about these ideas until 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And that isn't good for anybody. So I keep a pad by my bed, and I literally write down, right before I go to bed, I pull out all the ideas out of my head, and I just kind of sit on there. To be clear, I haven't cured cancer, okay? Like all these ideas that I think are unbelievably fantastic usually are not so great. So don't worry, you're not missing out on some great idea, but if you can get it out of your head by writing it down, it can be super duper helpful. Select a wake-up time and stick to it. If you took one thing from my talk today, this is the point to take. Wake up at the same time every day, including the weekends. I know that sucks, okay? I totally get it. But if you wake up at the same time, you keep your circadian rhythm going, and that keeps the entire system functioning really, really well. So again, if you did one thing, if you took one piece of advice, it's wake up at the same time every day, including the weekends. So I'm the only sleep doctor in the universe that says it's okay to sleep with the television on. What? Michael, heresy, what are you talking about here? So I'm going to tell you the story of why I have to tell you that it's okay to sleep with the television on. So when I met my wife, she said to me, Michael, if we ever have a sleepover, I need to let you know that I fall asleep with the TV on. I was like, don't worry about that, hon, I'm going to fix that. How many people in here have ever tried to fix something in their bed partner? Anybody? Anybody been successful? Because I was not even close to successful. So I removed the television. She said, you can now leave. I put the television back in. She said, now you can come back. So I was like, okay, I'm a Pavlov's dog. I can figure this part out pretty easily. So I decided to study her to figure out why does she sleep with the television on. So she doesn't watch it. She listens to it, right, out of what I call the corner of her ear. And it's like an old episode of Seinfeld or something like that. But she described to me is she's got what she calls monkey mind. I probably shouldn't do this when I'm talking about my wife, right? Probably not a good idea. So she can't turn off her brain. How many people in here, by raise of hands, cannot turn off their brain before bed? It's the #1 complaint that I get in my office. So for her, it's the television. I don't have a problem with the TV, even with the blue light, because most people's eyes are closed anyway. What I don't like are devices, right? You got your phone. If you're trying to get your high score on Candy Crush, right, you're not going to bed. You're trying to get your high score on Candy Crush, right? So by just distracting yourself doesn't necessarily have the same effect that you're really looking for. So what I would say is put the laptops, put the tablets, put the phones away. If you have to watch TV, read. If you do have light exposure, using blue light blocking glasses is probably going to be very helpful for you. And then keep it cool. So how many people in here have ever had this experience where you're so warm in bed, it's the middle of the night, but what do is you take your foot and you put it out the covers, and instantly your whole body cools down and you are in great shape? Raise your hands. Okay, so you want to know why that happens? Because it's always a question that I get. So the reason that happens is you have different skin on the bottom of your foot, and it turns out there's no hair, so you can actually dissipate heat much easier. I've saved more marriages as a sleep doctor than I ever would have as a marital therapist, honestly, just by getting people back in bed and kind of being able to handle it all together. And then my final thing that I think you could do is check out my Sleep Quest. So we spend a tremendous amount of time and energy, and this is really, really cool. So it's a 30-night program, and everybody starts together, and you have this whole cohort of people, so you're not by yourself. And we really did something interesting here. We did this kind of, I don't know if you guys, some of you guys might be too young for this, some of you guys might be closer to my age. There used to be this series of books called Choose Your Own Adventure. Do you guys remember those? Where like at the bottom of the page it says, turn to page 12 if you want to go to outer space, or turn to page 14 if you want to go deep, underwater, right? So we kind of did that with the Quest. So what's cool about it is once you identify your chronotype, you'll get personalized specific information just for your chronotype, and then you get led back into the quest. So it's cool because it's a general program, but it's got a lot of specifics and a lot of personalization and things like that that are involved with that. So I would ask you guys to definitely check it out. I will be here and around and about probably through lunch. So if people have questions, I think I've been told that I'm out of time. So what I'll do is I'll be happy to hang out on the sides, ask questions, but I don't want to screw up everything for today. Guys, thank you all so much. I certainly appreciate all the time that you guys and that you have spent listening to me this morning. Once again, I appreciate you all. Have a great day.
Michael, I think you should create a quest around harmonious sleeping between partners, because it is genuinely like such a struggle. It's one thing to have like one person get their sleep, but if you have my husband is like a really aggressive sleeper. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know, do you guys have like who likes the bedroom hot, but then he likes it cold?
So the big questions are usually temperature,
Yeah.
bed firmness,
Yeah.
television on
And
or off.
stay out of my side of the bed.
Oh, people don't like to be touched for
Yeah,
sure. And then snoring is the other big factor.
I think you should create like a couples quest, you know, like
yeah, that would be.
fall in
That's
love
not
by
a bad.
falling
All right.
asleep together.
If
Thank
you guys
so
want
much.
it, we'll figure it out.
All right. Who's inspired enough to not have coffee for the first 90 minutes of the day? I'm going to try that. I'm inspired to try that. Is anyone else going to want to try that tomorrow with me? Yeah. I'm down for getting more bang for my buck with my coffee. Okay, so now we have woken up. We've been in the space together. Dr. Breus has taught us how to put ourselves to bed. And we're now going to transition into a new direction in our learning. A lot of you know our next speaker, Dr. Shefali, because, you know, like, she's a big deal. And a lot of us know her work originally in the conscious parenting space. But what's interesting is that that's actually really just a small subsection of the work that she does, because she's a clinical psychologist that merges Eastern wisdom with Western wisdom, integrating those and really drawing down into the journey of the evolution of the self. And I'm really excited for this morning because she is going to share with us in a way you haven't heard her share with a Mindvalley audience before, dropping to a kind of a bigger picture of her work on this planet. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Shefali.
Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. So when Miriam and I were deciding what the topic of my presentation would be, what would be the title, I told her, you know, I'm really sick of being introduced as the parenting expert because it's not sexy enough. So she's like, okay, then just talk about sex. So I said, I can't talk about sex on Sunday morning. But let's pretend we're going to talk about sex so that the people will come, and let's call it conscious intimacy. So see, do you see how many men are in the room? It worked. So I know you probably think conscious intimacy is about, you know, some sort of tantric breathing or some sacred copulation. But like all good sex, it starts with a lot of foreplay. So we have to go to a place before the bedsheet to talk about conscious intimacy. So just like in parenting, where we've understood now that by age 2, the kid is pretty much screwed up, so it is with conscious coupling. It all really begins in early childhood. Whether you like it or not, you cannot escape your early fate. But there's beauty there. It's not as abysmal or dire as feeling as if you're caught in the matrix of your early childhood caregiver's unconsciousness. You are, but there's beauty there. Because this is what life is about. to understand what your earliest matrix was, what was the algorithm that made you you, that allowed you to be the child you were and then grow up into the adult you became and are. And to discover that is the journey of your evolution. So then your earliest years becomes the template, the foundation upon which you begin to understand who it is you are. So just like in parenting, we must go to the beginning if you want to understand how to be the most consciously intimate being possible. And just like in parenting, we understand that the child has core needs, very simple core needs, but for some reason, they simply don't get met. The needs are simple. You had them, I had them. Just the need to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be accepted unconditionally, unequivocally for who it is we were. But why is that so hard? Why weren't we bequeathed this one treasure? To be authentically free. To be authentically our greatest manifestation, our deepest self. Why? Why is this one gift not just given at birth? Why is it that we have to go through eons, decades of finding, unfolding, striving, coming to Mindvalley events year after year, looking for this elusive gift that was our right, but for some reason never given freely? And this is the greatest orgasmic pleasure possible. Not found in some Kama Sutra pose 1012 part A in the Kama Sutra workbook. He's like, how come I don't have the workbook? Mine only goes to position 62. Well, you'll have to come and take one of my courses. So the greatest orgasmic pleasure, the greatest intimate act is not found anywhere but in your finding of your authentic self. So people come to me, client after client, looking for someone to blame, looking for someone to cast aspersion, responsibility, accountability, my husband, my child, the system, the teachers, the past, my parents, looking because they're trying to find meaning in the wrong place. The one thing about couples, and I always say that there is no client more challenging than the couple. No client, even the most defensive parent who must be holier than thou, is not as challenging as the parent, because it is in the couple relationship, no matter if it's Bob and Don or Bob and Brenda or anyone of any variety or two or three, people who couple together or triad together or more together, this is where the storms of the past play themselves out. This is the tapestry, the movie screen upon which the drama of your childhood fully unfolds in the couple. So the couple, as a client, I tell you, are the most ornery, difficult, resistant unit ever. They come to work things out together, but it's like to get her and to get him. That's what it's about. There is no together. So if I so much as so give the other one more attention, like, oh, nice outfit, or, oh, nice button-down shirt, or nice cologne, or I'm looking at the guy too much, that's it. Right? Then the woman will be like, every time before session, he's like dressing up and, wearing the blazer that you liked 6 weeks ago. And what I begin to see is what I see in every client, but more so here, that we are just children masquerading as adults. Toddler tantrums abound in the couple. The fighting is only mirrored by two siblings under the age of 5. Every couple that thinks it's a couple is really replaying very archaic dynamics from the past. We're fighting to be seen, fighting to be heard, fighting to be validated. I mean, that's it. Why do couples fight? They're not fighting to end global warfare or poverty my way or your way. They couldn't give two hoots about that. They're only fighting as a 2-year-old wanting to be seen by the other. But the tragedy here is that, you see, when we fall in love, we think we're falling in love. The whole idea of falling is your wake-up call. You shouldn't be falling, right? Because if you're falling, you're tripping, and you're falling into something that's lower, an abyss, a trap. So you're falling in love, you think, with this other person. What we don't realize is that this person is a false idea of who you think they are. And why do I know this? Is because we are living as a false idea of who we truly are. Each one of us lives as an image of who we think we are, a belief system of who we think we are, a tradition, a cultural idea, a script handed down from generation to generation. So we believe we know who we are, but we don't. So we're presenting false self to false self and falling in love with each other. And what I call this is the twin beggar syndrome. That they both are beggars, really, but just couched in really nice clothes and really fancy makeup because we look so good in those first 6 months to a year till the paint comes off, till the mask comes off. And then underneath is a ravenous, hungry, outstretched hand saying, give me, give me, give me, fill my void. And when that cloak comes off, that's when the rubber meets the road. Because you're like, you want me to fill you? Like, no, that was your job, to fill me. And that's it. But it's all in silence, you see. So we pretend it's about the toilet seat up or down, or the amount of times we have sex, or who cooks or who doesn't. We pretend it's about that, but it isn't. It's about filling the inner void by the other and vying for the empty pie within to be filled with the other's pieces of their soul. So as long as we don't understand this, couples will still keep coupling and marriages will still keep divorcing because we're looking for love in all the wrong places. To understand what conscious intimacy is a whole other ballgame. It has nothing to do with the other. So when couples come to me, they think it's about the other. They think that the other is significant. This is the illusion. We're not in relationship with anyone else, really. Not at least not until we wake up. So who are we in relationship with? Pieces of your unresolved, unfulfilled, broken parts of yourself. Seeking for completion. You are seeking for completion in the outside world, but you just don't realize it. So as long as you're seeking completion, yearning to be unified within yourself, integrated as a whole, you will keep glomming onto the other as if it's the other. But it is through the expression of that relationship that you are fulfilling wholeness. You are seeking completion within yourself. You just don't realize it. And the illusion of a couple who comes together, empty to empty, half to half, or incomplete to incomplete, is that now we use the other, or we wait for the other to complete the self and don't do the inner work. So the undeveloped pieces of the self keep staying undeveloped. So when Jessica came to me, a client, so upset with her husband who kept leaving job after job, and she said to me, you know, all I seem to do is to be in crisis mode, to be in recovery mode, as if I'm some, Florence Nightingale to the rescue. I said, what do you do exactly? She said, I spend hours coaching him, holding him while he cries, while he's in despair. So she thinks it's about her partner, Mark. She's convinced if he only got a job, they would be in a better position. It's all about the health insurance and her unsafety in the financial world. It's all about her feeling unsafe, that we can't pay the mortgage, we can't pay the bills. So if only he, if only he, if only he. And traditional therapy can go on for years trying to fix the he and the she of our imagination. You see, Mark wouldn't exist if Jessica did not have an emptiness within her. If Jessica did not have an unresolved piece within her, the illusion of Mark would evaporate. There would be another Mark. But the Mark that she sees fits perfectly, couples most beautifully with her empty, broken pieces within herself. Because she grew up, you see, with an alcoholic father, lived her entire life as the oldest sibling of 4, completely in crisis recovery mode. She was the Florence Nightingale of her home. So quite naturally, she must recreate this pattern, you see. So the Mark who is the Mark with her, we don't even know if that's the real Mark. But we sure know that she needs Mark to be that Mark because this is the only role she's played. And so it is with couple after couple. So let's take Hillary. Hillary, who's in a relationship with her narcissistic husband, Steve. Steve is intolerable. He is inhumane. He degrades her. He denigrates her. He puts her down. She is justified to hate him. And she pulls me in. She seduces me. Don't you see? And sometimes I forget that it's all an illusion and a mirage. And I go, yes, my goodness, let's get a restraining order. Let's send him to the mental hospital. Because Steve the narcissist is a force to reckon with. The narcissist is a force to reckon with. So, especially this person's partner. So as Hillary would tell me about Steve the narcissist, I'm getting pulled in. You see, this is what the client does so well. They pull us in to believe the villainous enemies of their life and to take their side and to defend them against this evil other. You see, this is our job. It plays out on the micro level. It plays out on the macro level. We're always looking for the evil other because we're seeking redemption. You see, we're always seeking redemption of our soul. We want to be the good guys. We don't want to be vilified. You see, as children, we were always shamed and guilted that we were wrong. We were always hierarchically oppressed, dominated. We're seeking redemption anywhere for fresh air, at the cost of our children, at the cost of our partners who we love so much. It's okay. I just want to be redeemed. I want to be seen. Do you see me? Do you see how evil he is and I'm the good one? So we cast these plots, you see. Are we ever casting ourselves as the bad one? Does anyone go into therapy and go? Very rarely. Does anyone go into therapy saying, you know what? I am a narcissist. You know, I'm abusive. I'm neglectful. I'm a sulker. I sulk all the time. You know, I'm like a 3-year-old. Have you ever done that? If you did that, you know how much money you would save in therapy? Because this is it. I'm telling you, this is the script every therapist is trying to get you to. I am the problem. So just do that in the first session. I'm the problem. You've saved tens of thousands of dollars. Because you know every therapist is going to get you there. You know, we pretend to commiserate and go, Steve, wow, really? Mark did that, Steve did that. You know, Kathleen did that, she did not. You know, that's just the beginning phase of therapy. We're in the honeymoon phase. Because the therapist, like any couple, is believing your false self and going with the story. And you believe the therapist's false self. Oh, she totally is on my side. So we play this game just like every couple. Honeymoon, we trust, we build safety. You can tell me, you can tell me, you can tell me. And then slowly the mask comes off and the therapist goes, you know, I see a pattern here. And the pattern seems to always involve one common denominator. You. And then the client is like, Shefali told me that you would come down to this. This was all a trick to get me to pay you for all these sessions. You should have just told me that in the beginning. So I have a t-shirt now, which I show clients. It just says, it's all you. But still the client doesn't see it, you see, because they're so caught up in their script. They're like, yeah, this is for clients before my slot, you know, all the ones who came in the morning, who don't have a job. But now, you know, the ones who come in the evening, she's not talking about me. I tried, I wore a t-shirt. So when Hillary talks about the narcissist and I get pulled in, I forget that this is her childhood drama being played out. And she's casting me as the role, desperate that I am her mother, to see her for who she is. And this is the evil sibling who she's been fighting for chocolates with ever since she was yay high. So Steve is one more narcissist who steals and snatches her chocolate and tears her clothes up and steals her clothes, the sibling that we had or didn't have. And when I tell her that it doesn't matter what Steve does it? Because Steve can only be Steve in all his narcissistic glory if you are the pathetic enabler. If you want the pathetic enabler, codependent, desiring him to fill you up, desiring to be needed by anybody, how could Steve be the one who needs if you don't want to be needed? So it is that the dance of the couple plays out, all in smoke screens, in mirages, in phantasmic, chimerical mirages. And we think it's the other. This is the greatest delusion. The greatest delusion. But the other shows up in all sorts of ways. The other is the iPad, the other is the alcohol, the other is the pill, the other is the Botox. It doesn't matter what the other is, but it's most deadly in the couple. Because we are real, right? We're the most real. We know that cigarettes and alcohol are artificial. But a human being is real, so you're really an asshole. So it's hard for a couple to take full accountability. So when I tell Hillary that it's you, I don't want to hear about Steve. I don't want to hear about Steve. And she's like, you don't want to hear about Steve today? I'm like, no, I've done hearing about Steve. I want to hear about you. How you say yes when you meant to say no. How you allow when you meant to disavow. How you gave in when you meant to deny. How are you being you? That's all I care about. Because you are the one who allows the blossoming of the other. The seeds of the other can only blossom in your garden because your garden is in your mind. So the other takes fruit, bears fruit, blossoms into the oak tree, large and gargantuan, because your inner terrain is saying, come, invitational, fertile, come, grow your roots in me. But if your soil is not going to allow the tilling of the other's tree, there will be no possibility for the other to grow. So you get to decide what that soil looks like and who that soil invites in. And so it is with Gabby and her partner, Samantha. So it is in that couple too. Don't think the girls have it easier. They too. So Gabby will complain that Samantha is neglectful, that she's constantly rejecting me. She's angry. And after commiserating with her after a few weeks, then I will tell her, no, you're looking to her as if she's your mother. You're looking to her to fulfill something within you that simply cannot be filled by her because she's empty herself. Do you see how empty she is? So how can we ask the other? The other doesn't have the capacity to do what we're asking. You see, this is the thing with adult couples. We're asking the other to do something that simply cannot be done. The function that we're asking the other to do, to unilaterally, unequivocally, unconditionally accept us, the time for that is past. If it did not happen in early childhood, it cannot happen by another ever again. And this is why I do the work I do in parenting, because that window, the window and that function of the parent, the mother within the father, the mother within the mother, that mothering function is so pivotal, because that mothering function of mirroring to the infant, to the toddler, that I see you, I hear you, I accept you unconditionally, is the most pivotal one, because it cements within the infant, the toddler, the young child, that I am worthy as I am. So if that is not done, I tell Gabby and Samantha, the other cannot do it. Now the task for that can only be done by you. The reparenting can only be done by you. The remothering can only be done by you. And how? By you finding who it is you are, who you always were, but it was never given to you. That gift, as I said, was never bequeathed. So now you have to re-gift it to yourself. But looking for it in the other is all a mistake. But it's not our fault, really, you see, because this is the pattern repeated in your home, in my home, in my mother's home, in her sister's home. This is the ancestral patterns, because this dimension we live in is predicated on unworthiness. Because otherwise, if it wasn't, if we were all worthy, there would be no capitalism. Capitalism is predicated on our unworthiness. The whole cosmetic industry, the whole technological industry, now artificial intelligence. I mean, don't you think we should be so terrified of something called artificial? We don't even have natural intelligence. So, culture, you see, has created a hunger within us. Culture, you see, in the name of tradition, in the name of customs, in the name of institutions, has ingested the parent's mind in lack. So the infant has no hope, because within the amniotic fluids here is fear already. So the parent is a pawn, is the greatest pawn to the capitalist system. That's why I work hard to break parents out of their stupor, because I go, don't be a pawn. You are completely selling your child out to a system that is only working on your fear. So don't. That's why I want to wake the parent up, because I see the collateral damage on the young. So we have no chance, you see, because from birth we are indoctrinated into fear. So as long as that is the predicated foundation of our existence, we will keep seeking the salve, the balm, the alcohol to soothe, the injection to ingest, to alter reality. Because the reality is too difficult. You see, our inner reality is too difficult. So we're constantly escaping our reality. And today, even more so. You know, we want to hack growth. We want to hack the present moment. We want to live in the future. What are we doing? Unless we understand how culture has lied to us from our birth, and it's not our parents' fault because they were pawns, they were asleep, they were robots, they were reactive, they were dismally unaware. But it is our responsibility to release them and wake up. Otherwise, there will be no conscious intimacy with anybody because we have no intimacy, period, conscious or unconscious. We are not intimate with our own existence. So to become intimate, to become awake, we need to be aware of how culture has lied to us. And culture has lied to us at every level. Everything culture tells us is a lie. But it's so farcical that once you see it in one place, you see it everywhere. And then it becomes a joke. Then you begin to laugh. Then life becomes Maya, the true nature of life, which is an illusion. Then you begin to understand, all these systems that culture has set up have just taken me away from who it is I am. And here it is, I'm trying to marry someone who also was abducted from their true self. So what are we doing together? And then raising children together. But this is what we will do because capitalism thrives on our stupidity, on our ignorance, keeping us in fear, away from who it is we truly are. So as young as a day old, we're given a gender. And right there, we are abducted from our true sex. Because gender has nothing to do with what biology gave us, what nature gave us. Nature gave us a sex. But culture put on it all sorts of labels and terms. And you know, a girl is this and a boy is that. I don't need to tell you. So right there, there's a split from the truth, from your authentic self. Then you are sent to get miseducated in the educational system. And you go to become schooled in how to be a sheep to the slaughterhouse, where really you should be unschooled. So there we go. And then we're taught to pray to a God who lives far outside of us and who's white and a man. So again, we don't find resonance. And we're like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? But we're told who we are. We're told who we are. We're told who we are, and there is no resonance to our truth. So do you know how disconnected we are by the age of 2 or 3? The disconnection is mired, it's seared, it's imprinted. The scarlet letter is already on our chest. We don't need to commit adultery for it. It's already here. Because the lies that we've been told divorce us from our truth, and we can never find. We're looking, where do I find me? And you're like, it's in that God or in that goddess. And you're like, no, that's not me. That's not my authentic expression. And you're told, yes, it is. And your parents, just because they were indoctrinated in the same hierarchy of oppression, they don't know any better. So we cannot blame our parents. This is not about you leaving this room and going, Mom, she said that this is what you did to me by the age of 2. This is not about them. This is about understanding the ignorance that is ubiquitous. It is a spiritual somnolence. We are asleep in a culture that is thriving on our state of mind, on our state of unawakened unawareness. So the responsibility is in our hands. We cannot wait for culture to say, you know what, don't come to this shitty school system because really it's so crappy you won't even know how to count by the end of 12th grade. Don't. Culture won't tell you that. Why would culture tell you that? How would it employ people and make money and create therapists and educators and coaches and linguists and ADHD medication and a big pharma? How would it do that? There's a whole system that depends on this. And you are part of the system. You are responsible to keep the system going, and you feel very obligated. You're like good citizens, marching to the beat of a culture that keeps robbing you of who it is you are. And here it is now. Now we grow up, we've been schooled away from authenticity, right? And then we're told to go look for love, right? In the other. Go find that soulmate. There's one person out there that can fulfill you. So we go looking, really believing in a deluded way that there's a grown-up out there. How old do you think the average age is of this room? See what they're saying about you? 3, 5. But you're right. Because it doesn't matter how you look on the outside. and how well you pay your bills on time, and how well you keep your sparkling jewels in your little case, and how perfectly lined your lips are. It doesn't matter. And you know that, because when the wedding is done and the heels are kicked off and the wig comes off, you're like, who are you? How come I didn't see any of this? Of course you're not going to see any of this, because we are all living in false self. The truth is our emotional age. The truth is our spiritual age. The truth is our consciousness. And that has never been developed. It's not our fault. It's never been developed. Who goes to school to learn about emotional health and emotional abundance and how to live in interdependence and oneness? Who? No, none of us. So it's not our fault, but this is the truth. So don't think you are marrying a 29-year-old accountant, you know. Don't fall for that and look at his bank balance and feel like you're going to be secure, because you're not. Because the only security you will ever find first is within yourself, and if you are to find it in the other, it's in the other who has found security within themselves. So seeking refuge in your marriage, right? So culture has told us to marry. Yeah, it's for stability of the society and it's to keep your children sane. How many of you have parents who are still married? Don't raise your hands. The question really is, how sane are you because of it? So culture has told us that you get married, but culture doesn't tell us. Marry your truth. Marry your authentic self. Marry your inner liberation. Become your freedom before you even seek it on the outside. Culture tells us divorce is bad. It's a failure. It's a regression. It's a dismal sliding back into a primitive way of being. How could you? It's selfish. This is what culture lies to us. Instead of telling us, celebrate that you have divorced your false self. Celebrate that you have left behind vestiges of your past. You have released the cycle and you are now entering a new cycle of being. Culture doesn't tell us that, because culture lives bathed in your fear. It is bathed in fear, because out of fear comes consumerism. Only when we're incomplete, we want to eat, we want to buy, we want to fill. So culture thrives on this. So culture keeps lying and we keep falling for the lie. We keep thinking, you know, everyone else's marriage didn't work out, but mine, in my white dress, is going to work out, because I'm unique. Yeah, I know I'm wearing a white dress. It's okay. I know I'm just like everyone, all the million girls before me, but I'm really unique. My marriage is going to be different. I know I still want the 3-tier wedding cake, and yeah, I want the diamond, of course. It's not because I'm like everyone else. It's I'm unique. Okay. So in your unique narcissism, you believe that you're going to hack this thing called conscious intimacy. You're going to find it. But really, in truth, it's patterns, repeating patterns, repeating patterns, repeating patterns of a 2-year-old looking for love and validation in another 2-year-old. This is the marriage. I'm going to attend a marriage today. Really? How old are the people that are going to get married? Are they 2 or are they 5? This is what you should ask. Because emotionally, that's the party. The party is celebrating toddlerhood, you know? But it's not with balloons. No, we're too sophisticated. We hire the florist and we're getting flowers from Bali, and yeah, we're so sophisticated. See, this is the trick of adulthood. See, children are without guile. Children are without disguise. They're just like who they are, paint, mud, you know, eating their poop. They're just who they are. If they want milk, they'll have the milk. That's it. They have no guile. But we're so sophisticated, you see, and this is the treachery. This is the illusion. The more the masks, the more the foolhardy ignorance. This is why we are all suffering, because adults are the most treacherous. We are simply masquerading as grown-ups. There's nothing grown-up about us. To be grown up means to grow yourself up. To grow yourself up in a way that your parents never could grow you up. So in order to do that, you need to leave behind pattern after pattern after pattern, which is karmic in energy. By karmic, I don't mean your destiny necessarily. By karmic, I mean just full of chaos and strife and emptiness and longing and needing. And this is, most of us, our daily life. Longing, needing, filling, wanting, looking, searching, outward. So karmically, we're going to keep redistributing one pattern after another, just simply changing one face for the other. Mark for Steve, Steve for Jacob, right? Susan for, Miriam. Another name after another name. It doesn't matter. Because the true growing up comes when you understand that I need to break from the past. I am no longer my past. And in order to reinvent yourself in the present, I need to heal. I need to really do the inner work. I need to go on a sojourn. I need to go on a journey of solitude and contemplation to find who it is I am. There is no hacking this. There is no helmet you can put on and a switch you can click that you will come out enlightened. Yes, no pod you can go into to watch your brain waves, and then when you walk out of it, you're like, wow, I'm whole. No, the journey cannot be hacked. But the most beautiful thing is that it's unhackable. And today, in this modern era, in this sliver of time, we're looking to bypass the true work. But you are here only to understand that without the true inner work of finding your own intimacy with yourself, there will be no step forward. All this we're doing, this biohacking, infoteching, and artificial this and simulating that, is all more smokes and mirrors. The Eastern mystics, and perhaps even Jesus and Muhammad, and all the Western mystics understood that you have to walk the path. You have to enter your dharma. Your dharma is your true nature. And you have to walk it. And there is a path. And there's steps on that path. And there is no bypassing that. And the most pivotal step is entering into intimacy with yourself. Conscious intimacy, the very best sex you can have. If you've ever had it, you will know this to be true. Can only come when two people meet each other in complete wholeness. And then it doesn't matter if they're just two. I'm just including everyone, yes? It could be the whole party. It's about presence. It's about being attuned to the fact that all the roles you thought you played are not you. And when you are aware that all the roles are not you, you can then transcend this thing called I. And then the sexual intimacy that you engage in has nothing to do with you or I. It is to do with something greater. There's something between the you and an I, which is a we. And that we space, to enter that we space, is to enter interdependence, to enter oneness. You cannot enter it if you don't know oneness within your own wisdom. The oneness that comes from entering a solitude of contemplation, a solitary existence of inner awakening, that oneness that you experience, that is the oneness that you take into your relationships, where you understand that the other is only a representation of the inner self. So how I see myself is how I see you. So if I don't see myself, I really don't see you. So therefore, I'm lying to you if I tell you I love you, because I really don't even know who you are, because I think I am someone who I am not. And this is the game we're playing. So no one really loves another. I always say this, and I get a lot of pushback. Because to truly love another means something very different than what we see. If you really loved another, there would be no marriage contract. There would be no contract at all. If you really loved another, there would be no ownership. There would be no possession. There would be no dependency. There would be no enmeshment. There would be no control. If you truly loved another, you would truly liberate the other. Because when you love another, what you really mean by that in the transcendent sense is that you so honor their being, because you so honor your being. You see, once the inner self touches inner liberation, you will never steal it from another being. You know, when my daughter doesn't want to leave her iPad or her telephone or, you know, the 20th cookie, I have such a problem taking it from her, because I'm constantly asking, is this an expression of her true self? And I'm always asking, what is the line between her freedom and her sovereignty and my guidance? And it's a blurry one. So if it's blurry between parent and child, it's surely blurry between two adults. Where is the line between offering another complete sovereignty, freedom, acceptance, and being in a relationship? A relationship of true, consciously intimate, transcendent beings looks nothing like a typical marriage. That relationship is the we space. It's the energetic space that lies beyond individual I and you. It is beyond role. It is into soul. It is beyond possession. It is beyond any sort of clinging or craving or any sort of illusion that the other can fill the inner self. It is a complete and pivotal and irrevocable awareness that if I am going to be consciously intimate with another, it can only mean one thing: freedom, liberation, and unequivocal, unconditional wholeness of the soul. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali, for sharing and being a channel up here for us. I hope you enjoyed getting to see her and her even greater wisdom stepping out from just the parenting space into this expression of self. That was amazing. Oh, and now we have a chance to integrate what you've experienced this morning. Could the slides, please? We are going to be back in this room. I think coming up next is, so look, we have Kristina. She's coming up next to share with us, which is exciting. And then and Jim Kwik. And then in the breakout session is Jeffrey Allen. So we're going to take a quick break, come back here at 10:45, and we'll be starting. We'll see you then.
Street.
year is 1940. And something isn't right.
Something's wrong when you regret things that haven't happened yet. It's a glorious day when morning comes without that feeling of alarm. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while and smile. And smile. You couldn't sleep for the awful fright that kept you up in bed last night. But while curious shapeshift in the dark, they vanish with the sunrise spark. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while and smile. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while. So rise and shine. Now's the time to be alive, to stay awake with me a while and smile. Something's wrong. I lose everything so I can sing hallelujah. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I have lived my life so perfectly, kept all my lines so carefully. I lose everything so I can sing hallelujah. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free,
hungry arms, wild, hungry arms. Give me all the love I need.
Girl, you say you want it, and I have no tricks about it. And these played out faces around me, I want you to know where they go, but they ain't got nothing on you. So say hi and open your mouth for me. I got you locked down like police. No 3 to 5, you're doing life, so please don't knock over my heart, 'cause my heart is full of you. Yeah, my heart is full of you. And don't worry about tomorrow, 'cause my heart is full of you. Yeah, my heart is full of you. These noisy voices phony, they say I'm not really for ya, 'cause I slept around before ya, and I had fun, but now I'm done. So put your arms around me, and I put away the snowflakes, and you'll be my only, but no 3 to 5, you're doing life, so please don't knock over my heart, 'cause my heart is full of you. Yeah, my heart is full of you. And don't worry about tomorrow, 'cause my heart is full of you. Yeah, my heart is full of you.
Hungry arms, wild, hungry arms. Give me all the love I need.
After a while, found the fire, and I knew that you were wild. I think that the time is now. I think that the time is now. So please don't knock over my heart, 'cause my heart is full of you. Yeah, my heart is full of you.
Welcome back. Those of you who are coming in, those of you who are standing, please take a seat. Everybody say shh. We're going to get settled in really quick because, lucky for us, day 2 is really packed with our amazing speakers and our trainers and our sessions. And so we want to make sure we give you guys the best possible opportunity to receive all the information and then also have time to process it. So we're going to get started. A big theme that's been coming up during this event is the self, personal awakening, our dreams, our goal, our highest visions. What Dr. Shefali was talking about, really getting in touch with the wholeness of who we are so we can show up and even love another person. And so our next speaker ties in really nicely with this theme, because a lot of us have big dreams. We do visions, goal-setting exercises. We follow the advice he gave us on day 1. But there are these blocks that we face as we go in. And I know for myself, sometimes my dream feels so ridiculously big. I get overwhelmed. I get paralyzed. I end up curling up in bed and watching Netflix for 2 days. And so our next speaker, Kristina Mand-Lakhiani, she's going to speak to this. And if you haven't seen her speak before, she's actually the co-founder of Mindvalley. So if you're enjoying this experience, you've a lot to thank her for. She's been part of the journey of this company since its inception. And she's, in the last sort of 15, 17 years, she's been in this personal transformation industry. She's a speaker, she's a teacher, she's been a big part of, I think it's founding Mindvalley Russia. And as well as just being a teacher, she always likes to say, which I love, she's also a parent, and she's a mother, and she's a woman. And one of the things I love about how she speaks and shares is she is about the radical embodiment of your authentic self. And today she's going to speak to us about how to get out of our own way, see what the blocks are when it comes to playing big. So please join me in welcoming Kristina Mand-Lakhiani.
Don't believe me, just watch.
Good morning, and I want to thank you all for actually being here. Thank you very much. I'm thanking you on behalf of Mindvalley, because we wouldn't exist without you guys. So great thanks, and you can applaud yourself for taking these 2 days for yourselves, or 3 days actually. Thank you. It started a bit too early. So Lisa Nichols yesterday talked about dreaming big, and Vishen was talking about how to achieve your goals. And I'm probably the least likely person to come out on stage and talk about how to play big. Why I say so is because for 15 years, I've been choosing to be in the background and to be invisible. It was less than 2 years ago that I found my voice. So if anything, I know how to not play big. And occasionally, that helps too. So what I want to share with you is the traps. The traps have been on my path to playing big, and how to overcome them, hopefully. So a few years, before we go into that, I want to give a little bit of a context to that. So a few years ago, I don't know how many years ago, I saw this meme on internet, and like so many things nowadays in our industry, I don't know who actually is the author of this meme, but this image essentially says that you're blessed. And being a little bit of a nerd and a little bit of academic by nature, I had to verify the facts. I wouldn't trust what I see on internet. So literally what it says is that there are millions and even hundreds of millions of people who don't have their basic needs met. And if you have woken up this morning in your own home or in any decent location, have had clothes to wear and food to eat, then you are lucky. And you're blessed. And it's a cool thing, but there are a few lines in that meme which actually struck me. I can't speculate how much you guys earn, but we are in US, and I researched the last few facts about credit cards and income, and discovered that if you earn an average income in US, you are not just in the top richest people in the world. This number is scary, it's 0.09%. And what I'm trying to say with that is that we are not just blessed, we are privileged. We are truly privileged. There are not many people around this planet who are this lucky. Yet majority of us chooses to live in mediocrity, and I've done that too. And Vishen has mentioned a lot of problems that we have in the world today. And I understand, I don't want to be gloomy. I think a lot of things are doing much better. Human rights as a concept did not exist 100 years ago. Now we are talking about that. We are having not a gay fest, but a Q fest. So a lot of things are improving, yet there are a lot of problems, like those hundreds of millions of people who don't have their basic needs met. Or even worse, our climate. It's proven that the climate has warmed up by 1.5%. It's scary. It is truly scary. And all those problems are to be solved by someone. So what my point of this presentation is that, if we are so privileged to be this rich, and we are not comparing ourselves to neighbors, we are comparing ourselves to the neighbors far, far away on other continents, then why do we choose mediocrity? If it's in our hands to actually do something, and we have to do something if we want to continue living on this beautiful planet. So to talk about the traps to playing big, I decided to look back onto my life and share a few experiences from my own life. And through these experiences explain why we occasionally choose not to play big. I was born in Soviet Union. In fact, I was 14 when Soviet Union collapsed. So I went through the schooling system in the Soviet system. Of course, the last few years it was, technically speaking, independent Estonia, but you know how schooling systems, they don't change. So my whole bringing up, my whole worldview, everything that I knew was very Soviet in essence. And Soviet Union was an interesting country. It did not encourage questioning the rules. But encourage is probably, did not encourage is an understatement. Questioning the rules was punishable, cruelly punishable. You could end up in jail or killed. So of course, I'm not saying that it was some kind of concentration camp. We actually lived full lives. We lived happily, but we didn't question rules. So we were given a rule book of how to be a successful person. And it was very simple: study well, go to a good university, get a good degree, get a good job, get married, get 2.1 children, and so on and so forth. So by the age of 18, I was surely on the path to success, the way I knew it. I studied really well, because by nature, I'm actually a little bit ambitious. Not maybe a little bit. I'm truly ambitious by nature. So I studied really well. I studied so well, I got a golden medal at the end of my studies, because the last 3 years, I only got the excellent marks, so straight A student. But not just the golden medal, I actually got a medal from the president of the country for being the best student in my school. I'm not bragging. I'm trying to give you the context, but thank you. By the way, actually, you know, I can't see you very well, but I can hear you. So if you like something or if you relate to something, and I know you'll relate, you can make this sound, okay? Thank you, because I like feedback. Thank you. So I studied really well, and it just happened so that my school was a special school specializing in English. Some of my subjects were English. So something which is absolutely unusual for Soviet system, I graduated with functional knowledge of English language. And then I went to the best university I could think of, which was in Estonia. It was several years later that I was doing a research project in Oxford. I stayed there in Oxford for a few months. I went to the library of the University of Oxford, and I did what I love the most, you know, research, reading books. And somewhere there, I had this moment of regret, my first moment of regret. I suddenly realized that this could have been my alma mater. This could have been the place where I studied, but I didn't. I didn't. If anybody could study, it was the kids like me, you know, the straight A students who speak English and come from weird, obscure countries. But I didn't, because I was brought up in a system, in the Soviet system, where only the children of crazy rich oligarchs who probably got their money by killing people, well, I'm exaggerating, of course, were doing that. So in my worldview, studying in a university outside my country was like flying to the moon. So this picture is actually a graduation picture 10 years later after this story. Vision, after I lived for 1 year in New York, I suddenly decided I need to study again, but in an English language environment. So Vision convinced me that I can do that. So he suggested I apply to a few universities. And I still remember when I was looking at this acceptance letter from the University of Edinburgh. It was 15 years ago, but I remember how I couldn't believe it. It was like me holding the ticket to the moon. Really, you have to understand, it was impossible. So I wondered, what made it so, what could I have done to play bigger? Because I didn't play big. I got a good degree, but I didn't play big enough. What could I have done? The thing is that, so a few months ago, I heard a very interesting, curious lecture about AI. And I have to admit that AI is not really my specialty, so I'll try to explain it in a very simple language. So the lecture was talking about how AI is trained. And one of the ways of training AI is machine learning. So essentially, if AI has to learn how to play chess, for example, it's given some kind of rules, but machine learning means that AI goes in there and just tries doing things which are totally sometimes irrational and strange, and we humans don't understand. So because if the human learns a game of chess, the human follows the rules. AI through machine learning just does a whole bunch of random things. Does something, fails. Does something new, fails. Does something new, fails. But the remarkable thing is that this way AI learns not just super fast, but it also learns to be almost unbeatable by a human being. So I was so struck by this idea of machine learning, and I thought that this was the missing piece. If I had just tried doing things that I didn't know were possible, I could have played bigger. So fast forward a few years. Fast forward a few years. Sorry. I'll explain the picture, okay. I had a friend who suggested to start a business, and that friend was Vision. It was a female friend from Estonia, but I don't share her pictures, and you might understand why. But this picture was taken in Mindvalley office in that particular time when this story took place, and I just loved Vision's evil look. So I had a friend who suggested I do a business, and you see, business was also not a reality for a Soviet kid. For us, so if you did business, you would end up in jail. So for us, business people were unicorns, magical creatures that don't exist. And a few years later, I was a little smarter. I did the machine learning thing. My friend suggested, let's do a business. I'm like, okay, sure, I don't know what I'm doing. So I started putting this corn, to become a unicorn onto me. We did well, but our relationship I'll go back. Our relationship actually didn't last very well. We became friends through business. We were friends for a few years, but out of 6 years that we did that business, and it was a separate business from Mindvalley, it was like my own business. So for 6 years, the last 3 years were a torture for me. I really suffered because our relationship was very bad. I didn't enjoy it. I was dreading going to meetings. And sometime Dalai Lama told me, Kristina, you cannot help anyone if you're not happy. Yet for 3 years, I would sacrifice my happiness. And to myself, I was telling this beautiful story. I'm doing it for the greater good. I have to do that. I have to do that because, you see, I have clients, I have partners, I have people who work for me. So I was telling myself all those stories and lies about why I'm in this business and why I'm not happy. But the truth is that I was just scared. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs will relate. It's so scary to start a business that you need someone by your side. You need a business partner. And please don't get me wrong, you can reach success with people, you cannot do it alone. But there's difference between doing something with people and using people as crutches. So my business partnership became my crutch. I was scared. I was paralyzed, scared. And I still remember this day when it was so unbearable, our relationship, that I just couldn't last any longer. I came home, I wrote a long letter, and at the end of the letter I said, you know what, if it is like this, why don't we just split up? And I was sitting there and looking at this letter for half an hour because I didn't dare to press the button send. I didn't want it to be an ultimatum. I wanted it to be a decision. And in the end, I pressed the button send and I went to sleep, and the next morning I came to my bathroom, I looked in the mirror, and I suddenly felt like I had wings behind my back. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when we think that we don't know the solution, we don't know the decision, it is not because we don't know. In my 42 years, I've learned that we always deep inside know the truth, but we're just so scared to face it. And all that story about sacrificing myself for the bigger good, that was just lying to myself. So here I would suggest to you an analogy of jumping with a parachute. I knew I had to do that, and we planned a day when I will skydive. And of course, I didn't dare to plan anything beyond that day. Statistically speaking, I knew it was safe. But all the way to the drop zone, I was thinking, I don't need to jump out. I was putting on this outfit. I thought, no, I can still go back. I was in the plane. I was thinking, I can just land with the plane. And then you're standing there in front of this door, and there's nothingness underneath there, and you're paralyzed with fear. You're paralyzed. Like there's no life beyond that point. And then they push you out. Obviously, they push you out. And you are forced to make the step. And suddenly you feel like flying. So my point is that the difference between paralyzing fear and the feeling that you're flying is just this one step. But it wasn't so easy. I got my wings, and I was so excited that now I can express myself in business, because for me, business is a creative process. We entrepreneurs, we are artists. And finally, I didn't have the crutch. I was by myself. I had the wings, and I was so on fire, but my business was almost bankrupt. Because that's how we parted. We lost our biggest client. There was economic crisis. It was hard, but I was excited for 1 year. And then the next year, I started wondering and doubting myself. Why is it happening? Why am I not reaching success? And then there was another year, and I kept doubting. And I was thinking, like in this meme about the diamond digger, am I just being stupid, banging my head against a brick wall, or am I being persistent? Have you been in that situation where you do not know, are you just stupid or you're persistent? And I found this answer to me. If I was doing my business just to prove something to myself, that I can do it by myself, I can do it separately from partners, then I would have found so much proof in those years that I was struggling in this long, dark, deep tunnel. Before I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, I would have found so much proof that I am rubbish. The numbers would have told me that. But I was not doing that to prove anything to anyone. I just knew that what I do is important. My business is about, if you think that what Vision does in English-speaking language is valuable, I'm building that bridge between what Vision does here and Russia. Because there are so many people who don't speak English, who don't have access to all these people, to all this wisdom that you have heard from stage. So I couldn't stop. Even if I was bankrupt, I couldn't stop. I knew what I was doing was important. And I was not sacrificing my faith myself for greater good. It's slightly different. It was the letters from customers, their stories that their lives were changing, that kept me going in that long, dark, deep tunnel. And then, one more lesson I had to learn. I had to face the honest truth, the ugly truth, that maybe I'm not such a good CEO and manager. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a creative person, I'm an artist, but I'm not very good at managing things. And it was a little bit sad. For a while I thought maybe I shouldn't be doing business if I'm not good at that. But then I realized that I have to do only what only I can do. Just as an example, I'm really good at cleaning an apartment. As a Soviet child, that was my chore. When I was getting married at 25, you know what my mom said? After she said, yeah, Vishen is a good guy. She said, but who's going to clean my apartment? But I'm not doing that. Even if I clean an apartment better than my maid or the janitor in the office, I will never do that. And I applied that to everything in business. I stopped doing things that somebody else can do. And being a perfectionist, the straight-A student, an entrepreneur, we all do that. Can you imagine, when we started Mindvalley, I was doing programming, design, finance, editing. I do not know what I was doing. Why? Now I don't do that. Now I do only the things that only I can do and no one else. And I let other people do what they are doing well. And I know where it comes from, because when I was a kid, of course, when my parents went to school, they were told Kristina is generally good, but she's good with mathematics, but writing, she should do more writing. The teachers always tell us, we think that success is doing everything really well. That's what I was taught. But imagine if when my parents went to school, they were told, Kristina is so good in mathematics, why don't you look how she could do more of that? What if all of us lived only doing the things that we are so good at? And not wasting time doing all the other shit. And then comes the next lesson, of course. So I found my voice 2 years ago when I decided that I'm only going to do the things that only I can do and no one else. I found it, but I was not sure. A year ago I was speaking at A-Fest, and it's a daunting thing to speak on Mindvalley stage, because without exaggeration, the best speakers in the world speak here. So I was speaking at AFest, and before me there were amazing people. Michael Beckwith with such explosive energy. There was Keith Firazi with his best-selling book, with his authority. There were guys from Goldcast who create, viral video after viral video after viral video. And I'm sitting at the back of the room and thinking, who the hell am I to go up there? And maybe I haven't spoken a lot, but I've been in this industry for 17 years. I can guarantee every single person who inspires you has felt that. Who am I? And I was sitting there feeling less and less and less. Who am I to go on that stage? But lucky for me, I had a conversation with this awesome lady. She's a friend. She also helps us to put up experiences at my events, the ones which we do for our Russian-speaking audience. I had a conversation with her. And she said, we're obsessed about this idea about every one of us has a talent. But the truth is that we are multi-talented. And if I compare myself facet to facet to facet, there is always someone who has different energy, who's better at this, who's better at that. But what makes me valuable is the combination of what I have, the good and the bad. And if I just remember that what makes me valuable is me, my quirks, my weirdness, my thick, unidentifiable accent, which probably is annoying some, it doesn't matter. I don't have to compare myself. In fact, if I compare myself, that's the surest way to depression, I promise, if you want to try. So it's been my path to trying to learn to play bigger. I found my voice 2 years ago, and I'm still finding it. And last year, me and Vishnu were visiting Necker Island, Richard Branson's island. He has this masterminds there, and I really get, it's such an exciting experience. And I'm blessed because I've been working in Mindvalley for 17 years, and every day I know that I'm doing something good. I'm doing this world a better place. But when I go to Necker Island and I hear the things we discuss there, how to boost the entrepreneurship in the Caribbean region, how to deal with climate change. It's big, serious problems. I feel like maybe there is something else I can do, but I don't know where to start. So I haven't found an answer to that question, but I know one thing. I have to finish with a meme, of course. Everybody knows this girl now, Greta, right? How many times when she was in her deep, dark tunnel, she was going out there alone with that sign. I actually found one of her older pictures before she became so famous that everybody recognizes her. How many times did she have to do that before she became so famous that you know her? Your voice matters. My voice matters, even if it's weird and small and new. It matters. And if you think back to this first slide I showed you about all the problems that we have in the world and how privileged we are, how truly privileged we are. It's our responsibility to make our voice not just about ourselves, but about this world being a better place. So your voice matters, and please play big. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristina, for sharing your journey and then also reminding us of the context of our lives, the privilege we have and how important our voice is for ourselves, but also speaking up on behalf of others. And in the journey of moving towards our biggest dreams, I was thinking back to yesterday, we were talking about this idea of that gap, right? The cognitive dissonance between sometimes how we feel where we are and where we want to go. And it's really helpful looking back sometimes, like Kristina shared, looking back over her life, you can kind of connect the dots, but it's really hard to figure it out going forwards, which is why our next speaker, Jim Kwik, is really exciting to me. Yeah. I know you guys are all very familiar with Jim's story. He's one of the world's top trainers when it comes to brain performance, speed reading, memory improvement. And he works with big companies like Zappos and Virgin, and you'll see, he's worked with a lot of the X-Men because of his themes around the hero's journey and superpowers. And his story, if you don't know Jim's work, was that when he was younger, he had a brain injury, which created a lot of learning challenges for him, and he had to come up with the strategies to overcome that. And that's what he goes around the world sharing. He also has an amazing podcast, very popular, called Kwik, and of course, a Mindvalley, I think multiple Mindvalley quests. But what you might not know about Jim is that he's actually about to release his first ever book called Limitless. Yeah, I think it's in April, and I was really lucky. I got to have a little preview ahead of time of the book. And, I've read a lot of personal growth books. I know you guys have too. And what really blew me away about what he created is that his way of so thoughtfully and so helpfully structuring what he's learned, it made me realize that what he teaches isn't like some nice to have trick of how to learn quickly. Really at the center of it is that your capacity and your ability to learn is the center of your ability to become who you want to become. It is the most important thing, and it sits at the heart of our ability to do anything well, whether it's relationships or our career. And it really profoundly moved me to read that book and to realize that not only is that true, but he was creating a very clear, direct pathway forward. And so we are very lucky this morning because he is about to come on this stage and share with you some of the research and the key ideas that came out of getting ready and writing their book. So please join me in welcoming to the stage, Jim Kwik.
Where are my super brains out there? So this morning, by the way, how was yesterday? Outstanding. How many people feel like it was worth their time and their travel and their tuition just for yesterday? Yeah. And can we give a hand to the Mindvalley team for putting this together again? And for really bringing us all together. My session here today, because we have so many Superbrain graduates here and people have gone through the quest or considering going through the quest, is really to personalize something special for you today. As Mia mentioned, my book comes out 2 months from now, and I'm really excited about it because it's something I didn't want to put out there. It's been 28 years of me teaching this, and the question I always got was about the book. And honestly, I haven't talked about this publicly. The reason why is I just didn't have I want to help people, but I've always had this kind of push and pull in my life. I'm going to speak to you as if we're family, okay? Because I feel like this is our reunion here. When I do what I do and these videos and the podcasts, it's all along the years of doing this, there was always opportunities to be able to do it in a bigger way. Over the decades ago, infomercials and PBS specials and Quick Brain franchise schools everywhere, and media and book. And honestly, I don't know if you can relate to this, but the reason I said no is just I just didn't want the attention. My story. Growing up with my brain injury and having my learning difficulties, it was every day in class. My superpower was the ability to shrink down. You know what I mean? To grow really, really small. And I would condition that every day because I didn't want the spotlight. I didn't want to be called on in class. I was scared to death to be called on in class, actually. So my superpower was not to be seen. It was to be invisible and be really tiny. And I think we all have areas of development and such. And so I really didn't feel comfortable doing something on a kind of a bigger scale. And then a few years ago, I was in an accident where I almost died. And how many people have had a near-death experience? Raise your hand. Look around. It puts things into perspective, doesn't it, in terms of what's most important, and made me think about what I would leave, behind in that case. And the next day I signed the book deal and did that because I felt like at heart I'm a reading teacher. My teachers back then they wouldn't have thought I would read a book, much less wrote a book. And so if anybody could identify with that, people asked me last night, like, why did it take so long to write a book? It was just because I just didn't feel comfortable, having, again, these spotlights, even now, is still a little bit jarring for me. But I feel like shame on me if I could help somebody who's struggling and suffering the way that I did, and I didn't do something all I could to be able to help that one person. Do you know what I mean? So what I wanted to have a conversation here about that I feel like could serve you the most, the methodologies are very clear, right? I teach that in Superbrain. I mean, it's just, hey, 10 minutes a day, let's just learn one thing, let's practice one thing. I believe what this industry really needs is integration, meaning that you don't need any more knowledge. If you're here, my assumption and my hallucination is this is not the first event you've ever attended. Is that fair? And a lot of, it's not my podcast is not the first podcast you've listened to or online training that you've gone through. And I feel like sometimes there's too much information. And I think all knowledge really is self-knowledge and making it your own. And I feel like a lot of the questions I got last night, which I talked to many of you last night, a lot of the questions is just, you have to trust yourself. Like the questions I'm getting, I hear what's behind it, and it's just having trust in yourself. I really think the journey that we're on here, and I don't have slides, so I thought we'd make this kind of conversational. I feel like that would be more valuable because, we have 300 million video views online on my morning routine and using a visual pacer and be suave and all that. But if you're not doing it on a regular basis, what's holding you back? The reason I wrote this book, Limitless, is not about being perfect. It's about progressing and advancing beyond what you believe is possible. I see this that inspiration is not going to change me right now. I can't do this, right? And I'm fighting for I'm fighting to stay in this box. And then he's a very smart man. He reaches into his pocket and he pulls out my bucket list, a list of all my dreams and desires, and he starts to read every single one of them out loud. And imagine you're 18 years old, you don't know who you are, you feel like you're broken, and you're hearing your deepest dreams and desires in another person's voice, like incanted out in the universe. And it messed with my mind and my heart something fierce, my soul. It really shook it up, because a lot of the things on that list were things I wanted to do for my family, things they could never afford. Even if they had the resources, they would never do that for themselves. And this is the reason I'm bringing this up, is the first thing that keeps us from doing something is the mindset we don't deserve it, or it's not possible, right? The second force that keeps us stuck is the second circle, which is your motivation. Your motive for taking action. Because you could believe everything is possible and that you deserve it, but if you don't have drive. Now, when I say motivation, I'm not saying coming to an event like this and being around positive people and getting all excited, because how many of you have ever done that? And then what happens the next day? And you're laughing because that's the laughter of recognition. And listen, your neighbor's laughing because we all experience that. And motivation for me is not something where you get really excited and then it wears off like a warm bath. It's really nice. But then after 10, 15 minutes, it gets cold again, right? So I don't believe you need to psych yourself up every single time. I believe there's a formula for sustainable motivation. And it's these three things. This is the formula to be motivated. It's reasons times energy times small, simple steps. Now, the reason I wrote this book is not only the latest cognitive science on learning, accelerated learning, and performing at your best, but really it's a field-tested guide because I've seen it all. And for working with children who have no resources, that are in foster care, that have ADD or dyslexia, to seniors